I don't think there's anybody who ever saw the $6 Million Man who doesn't do the na 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 and the everybody knows when you start doing the slow motion.
That sound effect.
Everybody knows exactly what you're talking about, and they can relate to it, and they're like, okay, you're superhuman right now. You're the Bionic Man or the Bionic Woman.
You know, you're singing the theme song. Da-na-na-na. You're catching somebody in the jaw, like, you do that kind of stuff.
Humming and singing and running in slow motion.
I ran around in slow motion. You know, I love that whole bit with also the sound effect.
Who doesn't do that?
Really, really neat things that identified the show for kids, and it gave them an eagerness to watch it.
You don't even have to know about the $6 Million Man, but if you start running in slow motion and making that sound, I mean, 9 out of 10 people are going to know what you're doing. They're at least going to know that you're pretending to be a character made popular on television.
The first time they ever used the Bionic sound was in Day of the Robot. But they didn't use it for Steve. They used it for the robot. Later in the first season, you heard it a couple more times in Dr. Wells is Missing, in The Coward. That's really the first real bionic strength by Steve you hear was in The Coward. And then in season 2, in The Pioneers, he faces off against B.J. Honeycutt from MASH, and they're both using the bionic sound in that fight. But shortly after that, the $7 Million Man absolutely made it the permanent way that things were going to be. Bionic sounds from that episode on were the way you showed Steve using bionic strength. Now his eye had its own sound, and that came in earlier. The bionic eye first showed up as an eye sound in the 3rd episode, Operation Firefly. You hear the sound and you see that classic reticle of the 4 lines and the crosshairs that became the way they always showed his bionic eye from that time forward. Although you'd heard the sound even in the first TV movie as medical equipment. And in the 2nd movie as a little button they pushed to open up the missile silos. But, you know, Universal reused a lot of things. You know, they were a movie factory. And so a lot of their stuff would show up in different ways. From the 2nd season on, you would always hear, forgive me, but whenever he did anything with bionic strength. Before that, generally, if he was bending something, you would hear it bending and breaking. You would hear what I call metal fatigue. And he would be bending something, you would hear it go, puck, 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 puck. Of the thing snapping and so on. And they still use that later, but they added the bionic strength sound. By the 3rd season, they had something called the bionic impact sound, which was you would do something with the bionic strength sound, and there would be a reaction to that event, and you would hear another sound that kind of went bu 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 bu. then that became standard from then on. And you would hear jumping sounds. They would mess around with it in episodes like the last of the 4th of Julys. He does a pole vault, and you hear a synthesizer tone when he jumps. They really didn't standardize on that, though, until the 3rd season. But from the Return of the Bionic Woman on, they would jump, and you would hear a rising and falling electronic tone from that point on.
I would still love to know how the bionic sound was created.
The legend goes that Charlie King put one of these metal flexible rulers on a table, held it down, bent down the other end, and let go of it, and it went and so they did some slowing down, maybe some flanging. I couldn't tell you exactly what they did to get the right noise out of it, but they sourced it from that kind of event.
There's a lot of conjecture on the internet about what was used in terms of cylinder or cymbals that were hit and then run through a sort of a sound condenser and then things like that.
One of the great hallmarks of $6 Million Man and later Bionic Woman was the sound effect. There's a guy at Universal who was head of the sound editing department. His name was Jim Troutman. Jim, who had many, many shows to supervise, took special interest in the opening episodes of our show. And more than any one person was responsible for the inventiveness of the sounds. I used to be able to mimic them. I don't want to do them an injustice now. But he did the eye and the ears when Jamie had ears, and all sounds in between. I used to think, I said, Jim, I know where you're finding these sounds, but they're wonderful. And they were. They were storytelling. Jim Troutman, my revered friend.
I have never done the bionic sound while opening a jar of peanut butter, ever. but maybe been tempted to, but I have never done it.
You just have to do it.
Beep, 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 beep. Beep, 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 beep. Beep, 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 beep. No, 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 no. I can't do it.
The bionic impact is easier.
Yeah, something like that, yeah.
Just as part of life.
It's like a musical sound, like a zither or something, where they that had made such sounds, a very unique sound. I cannot ask me to sing, I'll sing, but ask me to, no, I don't. I can't do it.
The last of the 4th of July, they started using this bombs away sound for whenever you would throw anything.
Not so strong on the bionic thrust.
And it would go.
See, you're gonna wind up hooking nothing but air.
I was in Africa. For some reason, I can't remember the name of the country, but I was introduced to the president of the country. And I remember him walking over to me. He took my hand and he went, da 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 da.